Hello everyone, we are the group 3 and our topic for today is about the theory of production. I begin with the objectives. Objectives describe the concept of law of diminishing returns, explain ways to improve production, show how productivity is measured via formula, construct own graph for production function using data given on table 13, and point out the successful business in the Philippines that uses resources efficiency. Introduction. The theory of production is an analysis of output-input relationship. As such, discussions touch on the relation of output to the size, combination, and efficiency of resources. In turn, this output function serves as a tool in analyzing cost-output relationship in the next chapter. The fundamental concept in this chapter are the law of diminishing returns and returns to scale, which explain the output function and different resources condition. So later on, akong team members mag-represent and explain about sa other tables and graphs. So let's proceed to production function. Is a function that relates the output a firm can produce to specific input and therefore measures the efficiency of production. There are different inputs that a firm can use to produce output such as land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So as you can see, the table 12 shows the relationship between labor, man-hours, and output in the production process. It illustrates the concept of total product, marginal product, and average product. Total product is the total output produced at different levels of labor input. Marginal product is the additional output produced by adding one more unit of labor. Average product is the total product divided by the number of labor unit used. So, naiupat ka stage dara. So, ang stage 1, ni-increase iyang marginal product o iyang average product. Sa stage 2, nag-decrease iyang marginal product but nag-still positive iyang average product. Sa stage 3, negative marginal product and decreasing average product. So, sa stage 4 is negative marginal product and negative average product. Next, the law of diminishing returns states that increasing variable resources beyond a certain point strain fixed resources, leading to decreased additional output and efficiency. This occurs because overuse creates counterproductive condition, simplified by the saying, too many cooks spoil the broth. Figure 37, production function. It shows the total product TP, average product AP, and marginal product MP curves. TP represent the total output produced at different levels of resources input. AP is the average output per unit of resources input. MP is the additional output produced by adding one more unit of resources input. So kini na graph same lang Japon ni siya sa table 12 nga if mag-increase ang marginal product o ang average product same ra siya. If mumubo ang marginal product but still positive iyang average product. So this graph is visually represent of production function, a fundamental concept in economics that describe the relationship between inputs and output. Next is the lesson of diminishing returns. The law of diminishing returns teach that the adding too much of one resource without adjusting other leads to inefficiency and decreased output. To improve production capacity effectively, all resources must be increased together, highlighting their complementary nature. So, sa figure 38, production capacity expansion, the graphs illustrate the concept of production capacity expansion. It shows two total product TP curves, TP1 and TP2 representing different level of production capacity. TP1 nag-represent siya sa initial product capacity kung ang firm makaproduce a maximum output of 2 units with 7 units of labor input. Ang TP2 nag-represent siya taas na production capacity nga ma-achieve through investment or technology advancement with the same labor input of 7 units ug ang firm makaproduce og 5 units sa output. So kung motaas ang production capacity, mag-allow ang firm nga mag-produce og daghang output with the same amount of labor input. The higher the productivity and the potential increased profit. So let's proceed to Issaquah-Issaquah's model. Issaquah-Issaquah's model. This model illustrates more dynamical how different plant size and resources combination determine different levels of resources efficiency and plant capacity. As a dynamic tool of analysis, it also factor in the cost and budgetary limit of production. So my team member discuss the next slide.
Good day, everyone. I will discuss the isoquant. There are infinite combinations of a resource input which determine the capacity of maximum output in a two-variable resource system. The combination from the product in different curve or isoquant. An isoquant represents all combination of two resource inputs such as a capital K and labor L that yield the same level of output, thus illustrating the capacity. Figure 39 present an isoquant with capital and labor as resource input between one point and another along the curve. An inverse relationship exists between one resource and the other as the capacity foregone by using less of one is gained by using more of the other's. See arrows. The marginal rates of substitution (MRS) are defined as how much of one resource is given up in order to use an additional unit of the other, given the capacity. To use the isoquant in Figure 39, the MRS of capacity K to labor L is measured as follows. MRS equals change y-axis over change x-axis. MRS equals change K over change L. The isoquant and diminishing return. The law of diminishing return influences the behavior of the marginal rates of substitutes MRS as the letter shape the isoquant. In an isoquant, diminishing return means that as labor L is added, the additional output produced by each extra unit of labor will gradually decrease if capital K is held constant. The principle affects the MRS because as more labor is added, increasingly smaller amounts of capital can be substituted without reducing output. As a result, the MRS of the capital labor decreasing along the isoquant leading to each characteristic convex shape. Table 13 show that less and less of capital input K are given up in order to use an additional unit of labor L as MRS decrease down the line. A hierarchy of isoquant is an array of isoquant which corresponds to different level of resource input and plant capacity. A hierarchy of isoquant, also known as an isoquant map, is series of isoquant representing various levels of output based on different combination of resource inputs such as capital and labor. In Figure 40, all the points of Q1 move upward to form the higher isoquant Q2 as more capital and labor combined increase plant capacity. This overall change is actually the upper and rightward shifts in the production of function curve in figure 40 where all resource increase plant size and capacity.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Kent Alexis M. Claudel. My topic is the isocost curve and its hierarchy. Focusing on how resources like capital or K and labor or L can be combined within a fixed budget to achieve different production outcomes. Next is the isocost curve. Shows all possible combination of these resources that a budget can afford. The concept of the marginal rate of substitution, or MRS, is introduced, representing the rate at which one resource must be traded for another while staying within budget. MRS is calculated as the ratio of the changes in capital to labor or vice versa, and it reflects the relative cost of each resource. And the hierarchy of isocost curves illustrates that higher budget lead to higher isocost curves, allowing for greater resource combinations. These curves remain proportionally consistent due to constant prices and MRS across different budget levels. Next, the concept of the isocont combination is where the isocost curve defines budget constraints and the isocont curve represents achievable production levels. It states that an infinite number of isocost curves exist because of varying budget levels, creating a hierarchy of curves based on the cost and resources available. Next, as you can see, the table 14 shows different combinations of capital and labor for budgets of 10,000 pesos and 20,000 pesos, assuming capital costs of 2,000 pesos per unit and labor cost of 500 pesos per unit. The marginal rate of substitution, or MRS, of capital for labor is 0.25, meaning that a specific amount of labor is needed to substitute 1 unit of capital. Next is figure 41. As you can see, it illustrates the hierarchy of isocost curves for different budgets, showing how increased budget allows for more resource combinations, or capital and labor. The optimal resource mix along an isocont depends on intersecting isocost curves, balancing budget with production capacity. Next is the concept of optimal resource allocation. It describes how the least cost combination of resources, or capital and labor, is found at the point where an isocont, or representing production level, is tangent to the lowest isocost curve, ensuring the required production is met with minimal cost. This optimal point follows the principle of equimarginal utility, meaning the last unit of resource spent yields the same marginal product as another resource. Deviating from this point leads to inefficiency, diminishing returns, and reduced production capacity. It also mentions the law of diminishing returns, expanding how increased capital use with less labor, or vice versa, can reduce efficiency when certain limits are reached.
Change resource mix. Resource mix or combination is defined as how much as one source is per unit of the other. Optimum combination change with relative resource price and efficiency. Figure 43 change in relative resource price. For more work at lower cost, powerful and cheaper to do more work at lower cost. Figure 43 illustrates how a variation in relative resource pricement can change the optimum resource combination from point A. The ISO cost curve becomes from B1 to B2 as labor becomes more costly while capital cheapens. Initially, output decreases because only less or more costly labor inputs can complement the same capital inputs. Figure 44 illustrates how a variation in relative resource efficiency can also change the optimum resource combination. The new quant Q tends to be flat as less more efficient capital inputs can only give up exchange for more less efficiency labor, lower MRS. In conclusion, optimum resources combination favor the use of cheaper and more efficient inputs to maximize production. The explained industrialized country are used capital-intensive technology to solve their problem as accrue and expense labor resources. Productivity. This section discusses the dynamics of resources efficiency as it affects production. This succeeding chapter will also highlight its impact on firms' competitiveness and survival. Concepts. Productivity is the efficiency and therefore the power of inputs to produce. Productivity Q and I, where Q equals outputs, I equals input. The following, which is average productivity, is efficiency of inputs taken as a measured as output as in above formula. Marginally productivity Q equals I. A equals change in the production function in figure 37. The average production EP of labor measured average efficiency while marginal productivity MP measured its marginal efficiency. Advantage. Productivity improvements means more output per unit in input as the increase in the efficiency ratio Q and I indicates. It also means less inputs for output at the decrease in the ratio invest. I equals Q indicates. Therefore, efficiency is not a matter of size. A bigger plant is not necessarily more efficient than its smaller counterparts.
To illustrate the foregoing, the ISO cost curve in figure 45 becomes steeper from B1 to B2 as the same budget can buy more of cheaper capital. On the other hand, the ISO quant Q1 flattens to QS or lower MRS as only less of the increasingly efficient capital is given up to use an additional unit of labor to maintain plant capacity. Maintaining combination at point A with more efficient and cheaper capital requires a smaller budget below ISO cost curve B2 as a smaller capacity, but optimum resource combination is now at point B despite the same budget at B2 with cheaper and more efficient capital exchange for labor to increase capacity to Q3. Returns to scale and productivity. Returns to scale measures how output changes relative to resource inputs in the long run indicate how well resource efficiency changes with plant size, plant expansion, either condition or stifles resource efficiency depending on plant size and condition. Returns to scale are measured as follows. R stands for returns to scale, Q stands for output, I is resource input, and the sign the triangle change, and next is a percentage. Resource efficiency of Q over 1 increases when R is greater than 1 because Q increases faster than 1. The opposite is true when R is less than 1. To capture the effect of plant expansion on resource efficiency, the measure assumes constant percent use of plant capacity and excludes the distorting effect of the diminishing returns. The measure can misrepresent, say, a decline in plant efficiency from overusing resources due to diminishing returns to scale. In figure 46, all the points of TP1 move upward to form the new production function TP2. Full use of plant capacity, for example, results in the same output-input ratio at point B2 as at B1 following the proportion line. The same is true at the threshold of diminishing returns at points E1 and E2. Average product or EP, and therefore overall resources efficiency remain the same despite plant expansion. R as a value of 1 with proportional increases the plant size and capacity. Table 15 returns to scale. Table 15 summarizes the different stages of plant expansion in relation to overall resource efficiency. The first stage has increasing returns to scale with R greater than 1. Output increases faster than resource inputs as the latter becomes more and more efficient. The second stage has constant returns to scale with R equals to 1. Output increases as fast as resource inputs as the efficiency of resource inputs is constant. The third stage has decreasing returns to scale with R less than 1. This time, output lags behind the resource inputs as the latter becomes less and less efficient. The last stage has negative returns to scale with R that is less than 0 or negative. At this stage, output decreases despite plant expansion as resources become more and more inefficient. Reasons for returns to scale. The early part of plant expansion condition resource specialization and division of labor which increase returns to scale. This stage is characterized by the efficiency of size or economies of scale. In a small plant, a resource may be assigned different function because no job is extensive enough to be monopoly. But large-scale production enables resource to concentrate on job requirements instead of diffusing efficiency. In Figure 47, innovation shapes the long-run production curve upward from Q1 to Q2 and churns out bigger additions to output from A to point C instead of to point B without innovation. As a result, negative returns from expansion after point D are postponed until a bigger plant is built at point E. It follows that continuous innovation indefinitely increases returns and postpones negative returns. Overcoming decreasing and negative returns. Advances in information technology can solve the once insurmountable problems of communication and control in large organizations. The fast processing and transmittal, as well as the efficient storage of large volume of complex information, make the technology an indispensable tool of management decision making. The modern corporate culture is shifting towards a people-oriented approach, aligning individual and organizational goals to create a mutually beneficial synergy. This culture fuels the drive to succeed in a competitive landscape. Self-managed terms exemplify this trend, balancing individual autonomy with organizational efficiency.